Thanks for tuning into TellyCast. Before you listen to the show, I wanted to let you know about our next content industry event, the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, sponsored by BBC Studios. It takes place at BFI South Bank in London on the 10th of November. The first event of its kind in the UK, it will create an environment for producers, podcasters, brands, media agencies, platforms and the wider content industry to gather, learn, debate and share insight on the business opportunities in the fast-developing world of digital-first content. Panel sessions during the day are designed to provide actionable insights and will focus on production, development, community building, IP, formats and brand-funded social content. Speakers include senior execs from Meta, BBC Studios, Lad Bible Group, Channel 4, Future Studios, Audio Boom, The Sidemen, Jungle Creations and more to be announced. The lineup also features top creators, including YouTube star Joe Sugg and Danny Robbins, creator of podcast turned TV series The Battersea Poltergeist. And our moderators include Creatorville's Sam Barcroft and former YouTube Originals Commissioner and Executive Producer Luke Hyams. Tickets are strictly limited and only available at telecast.com/events. TellyCast listeners can also get an extra £20 off the ticket price by using the promo code TellyCast+. We'll see you there.
TellyCast, the TV industry news review.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to part 2 of our MIPCOM special show. My guests this week are Bavaria Fiction's Marcus Ammon, Ilke Hynnenen from Ilke's Creative Studio, Ryff's Duermeier, and Fotini Paraskakis from Empire of Arkadia. They're all coming up on this week's TellyCast.
It's always lovely to meet people from around the world at MIPCOM, so I'm delighted to meet here Marcus Ammon from Bavaria Fiction. How are you doing, Marcus?
Hi, Justin. Thanks for having me. I'm fine. It's good to be back in Cannes.
What's your sense of the market then so far? I mean, do you think it feels busy? Is it, like you say, there's a bit of energy around the place?
There's lots of energy in the place, and I feel like times come back from before the pandemic. That's a good feeling for me. I've been here in April as well, and it felt like a ghost city more or less. And now people are back, the booths are back, all this creative energy is back. That's a good feeling.
Yeah, well, it feels like almost back to pre-pandemic days, in terms of levels of people here and, certainly the news stories that have been announced, lots of deals being done. So I'm really delighted to have one of Germany's biggest producers here, and we actually haven't had many German guests on the show, so I'm delighted this week, as is fitting of an international market event. We've got guests from all around the world. For people that might not be too familiar about Bavaria Fiction, can you tell us a little bit about the business and your role within it?
Bavaria Fiction is a very traditional production house, one of the biggest production houses in Germany, and it's owned by two shareholders, one of which is Bavaria Film, our parental company, and the other one is ZDF Studios. And these are our two shareholders. We are producing roughly 16,000 minutes each year, all kinds of content from a daily show to single TV movies to shows for streamers as well and movies for streamers. So it's a huge variety of content that we are offering.
How many people are in work within the business then?
In our company, roughly 60 people.
Right, okay. Yeah. As you say, you're right across the landscape of content there.
That's true, and Bavaria is a very traditional company in Germany. It's also a studio lot. Many movies have been produced out of Bavaria. Of course, Bavaria has been focusing on production for television as well, next to theatrical production. And it's a fun job that I've been only doing for 12 months now, so I'm pretty new to this company.
And you recently launched a documentary arm, didn't you? Tell us about that.
That's correct. When I joined in November last year, I was able to set up my own agenda and think about what's important for the company. I found some points for the internal business, what could be changed, but also strategically, where do we want to be in 12 months, in 24 months time? And I felt that there's a huge demand for documentaries or for non-scripted content in the business that we are not fulfilling at all. So I thought, why not tapping into this space? And we hired a producer for documentaries, a very experienced guy called Emanuel Rothstein, who has now started to develop projects, to get these projects to a state where they can present it. And we are now on the verge of pitching projects to potential partners.
Is that first and foremost domestic broadcasters you're looking at, or are you looking at the international market?
That's both. That's first of all the public broadcasters, but at the same time we feel this demand from the streamers as well. As soon as a story has bigger appeal that could also resonate out of Germany, we of course are more interested in getting out to streamers that would make a story much bigger and much more global.
Tell us about some of the biggest titles that you've produced that people might be familiar with.
Our biggest show that we are still producing, and we've just finished shooting season 4, is Das Boot, which is based on the huge movie from '82 by Wolfgang Petersen. It's a show that we've been producing for Sky Studios, and season 4 is now finished. Season 3 had been on air earlier this year, very successfully, so this is a huge thing. Then we produced a film for also Sky Studios on the early days of Franz Beckenbauer, how his career started as a huge football player. Fantastic movie that will launch later this year, probably around the World Championship in football. We produced a film for Netflix called The Privilege, young adult horror film, which was successful there. However, it needs to be said that our core business is still with public broadcasters in Germany. Our daily soap called Storm of Love has been on for more than 15 years now, for more than 17 years, excuse me. We're producing the most successful weekly series in Germany and Austria called Rosenheim Cops. Some other weekly stuff, but also a lot of TV movies and franchises like Tatort, which is one of the leading shows on German television each Sunday night on ARD. So this is the core business. On top of that, and this is one of my other targets, I want to open our business much more into towards the streamers and towards new players in the market.
We're now coming out of COVID that's hit all different businesses all across the world in different ways. How was that for the German market? You know, how's the German industry coping and coming out of the coronavirus crisis?
I guess it was a huge bummer for the whole industry globally, not only for the German industry. This negative trend only started with COVID. It now went on with the war in Europe and the inflation and other stuff that is substantially affecting our industry in a way that completely changes, for example, budgets, changes the numbers of shows that are produced or will be produced, that changes the situation on set, that also changes for us, of course, the opportunity to make money. So I'm in a way both. I'm optimistic that we can successfully get out of this crisis that started with COVID. We still have COVID, and we have lots of losses on set because of COVID. We have increased prices, increased rates in almost every area. We are facing a tremendous shortage of skilled talent, of skilled labor on set, which is also has also an impact on our production. So there are a lot of things that only started with COVID, but to date we are in a situation that we haven't been in years.
Yeah.
And the question is, how can we as an industry globally get out of this situation?
Yeah. All of these price increases and price pressures are going up. The end buyer, the broadcaster, is going to be the one who has to pay for those. What do you think is going to be the effect over the next 6 months or so? Do you think there's going to be a slowdown in commissioning from German broadcasters?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
we are still hearing the sentence of the golden age of television, and I guess this is pretty much over. Meanwhile, there has been a kind of overproduction, and it was just important for producers to be quick and to deliver in time, and there was this huge need from the streamers when they all started their businesses locally for any kind of content. I guess these days are over. There has been a and kind of an oversaturation with product, and that will come to an end. So what you indicate is completely what I think will be the case. There will be a slowdown in production. There will be a focus on less production. What I keep hearing, not only from friends, but also from so many people from the industry, is the sentence, when am I supposed to watch all that? There is so much stuff around, and people ask me, "Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" I don't know when I'm supposed to watch all that.
I think that's a very common experience. My watch list in my Netflix and my Disney Plus and my Amazon Prime and my Apple, I just don't get time to watch them.
Exactly.
All, right?
Exactly, and this is the point, and this is why I think there will be a consolidation of product. And this will lead automatically to a higher competition between producers. This will, in the best case, lead to a higher quality, depending on how you define quality, but there will be a focus on quality. And when it comes to streamers, what I realize is, and this is more or less referring to what they look for content-wise. On the one hand, streamers need to grow their sub base. They need to get bigger, gain more subscription, etc. Automatically, they would need to produce for a mainstream audience in order to reach out to as many audiences, as many people as possible. On the other hand, they all need to stand out in a way. They need to be different to what is already there. They want to differentiate from the competition. And this is on the contrary to being mainstream. So this is what I find a very interesting conflict. And as producers, our challenge is to meet exactly the sweet spot of what the specific streamer is looking for.
Right. So it's going to be less content being commissioned. So the focus on as you say, your target is ever more important now.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's not going to be a slowdown in demand to fill the amount of content that they can offer to consumers, but they may not be able to commission so much. So maybe there's going to be a resurgence that we saw within COVID of back catalogue shows coming back.
Back catalogue shows, you mean back shows that had been on their service in the past
Yeah.
and are remade, or
but I mean potentially, or it could literally just be a case of seeing older content, going to the distributors, and we saw shows like Poirot, for example, very 20, 30 years old content resurfacing around the world and being featured by a lot of broadcasters. So I just wondered if you expected that to be the case, or
it might be one expression of the current situation. I still think there will be, of course, need for local production, for original production, in addition to, of course, licensed program and licensed content, which gets more and more difficult. I used to work for Sky before I joined Bavaria, and Sky used to have output deals with all studios in the 90s and the 2000s. But now with all the studios starting their own streaming platform, it's of course very difficult to access content from the studios because they need the stuff for their own growth. This of course leads to a specific focus on original content and original production.
This market is about buying and selling at the end of the day. It's a market. So what are your key focus titles then that you're hoping to strike some deals with?
Thank God MIP is meanwhile much more than only buying and selling. It's, a place to meet people, to meet potential co-production partners. Co-production is another thing that is meanwhile on my agenda.
Is that on the drama side and also on the documentary side as well?
On both sides,
yeah.
Exactly, on both sides. I'm meeting people now more for the drama side, from other territories with projects that are or that might be interesting for us to step in and take a share in. Co-production is important for German players in the classic linear area, but also in the streaming area. So this is a big focus, and this is what MIP is very good for, most definitely. But I'm also meeting with, colleagues that I used to work for. It's a place to meet and greet and see friends and be back with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it is. I've been speaking to other people who have companies have gone through mergers and acquisitions during COVID, and they've never met their colleagues in person, right?
Yeah,
International
exactly.
colleagues now.
Exactly.
So that's kind of it's quite nice to see people not only connecting with old contacts but meeting new ones as well. But,
you know people from a little tile on your screen.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you see them in person.
Yeah.
A real human being.
Yeah.
Hello.
Marcus, thank you very much for coming on TellyCast. Really enjoyed our chat, and good luck at the market.
Thank you, Justin. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So my next guest on this week's show is Duermeier from Ryff, RYFF. Welcome to TellyCast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to speak to you as we sit here overlooking the Cannes Old Town and the harbour in its sunshine.
And the beautiful boats.
The beautiful boats are bobbing up and down, so it's a very nice vista.
Definitely, and the weather is being good on us.
It has. It's nice to be out in the sun again. So, tell us about Ryff first of all. What is Ryff? And what is the problem that it is actually solving? Because you're a technology business as well as being a kind of content-aligned business. So tell us about it.
Yeah, we're more a technology business. We're actually offering a solution. I'll dive into that. I think it's good to understand what Ryff is. And so Ryff is actually connecting content and brands together, or brand and content, depends how you want to, from which side you're looking at it. So what we do, we scan content, and then using AI technology, we find everything in the content. Once we found everything in the content using thousands and thousands of data points, we can then find opportunity to insert brands in multiple ways. People talk about product placement, but it's actually more a new advertising solution, because it creates a tremendous amount of flexibility and creativity on a scalable solution. So it's very scalable.
We've spoken on TellyCast many times about branded content and brand-funded programming and the way that brands get involved with content, and it can be a beautiful marriage. Sometimes it can be more of a tricky path to integrate brands into content at the beginning of the production process, because when it comes to brand-funded content. But what you're doing is inserting brands into finished content.
Yeah, we do get offerings on live, and we do get offerings on things that are in production already. We even have some shows that film without any placement anymore and ask us to put it in retrospectively. From the traditional point, and I'm in the industry for 25 years, normally how it worked is that you have one brand and one piece of content. But with the Ryff technology, you can build complete campaigns. So the way it works is that when we find the opportunity and the empty spot, so you can imagine, say you've got a brand, a shampoo brand. Where do you place a shampoo brand? You place it in bathrooms or in shops. So what we can do is we scan entire libraries for those opportunities, and then we can already say there's exactly 3 seconds here, 5 seconds there, 2 seconds there, and we don't do it one piece of content with one brand. Well, we can do it across an entire library of one content owner, of multiple content owners, locally or globally. And what it realizes as well is something that people are very keen on, which is called localization. So you offer the Evian bottle here in France, but you offer a smart water in the UK. And that is exactly what we can do. So instead of monetizing once on your content, you can monetize multiple times when you sell the content. And we all know that content is traveling at more and more compared to the past possibilities. So thinking about that, you can have one piece of content and just monetize in every single deal you do. And that is a game changer. And especially if you see the struggle that asphalts have, looking at, can we advertise? People are not too keen at around program advertising, but they don't mind in-program advertising. If we would now have a bottle of Perrier on our table, who would mind if it's sitting there? But it is a good way of advertising your brand within the content. And it has more solutions because especially with new content, it's not always proven. So brands are hesitant to come in because it doesn't have an audience yet. If you know Friends, you know what type of people are watching Friends. But a complete new show that hasn't aired before is more difficult. And again, this time, they can do it retrospectively. So they can look at what does the audience do and then come in. And the other thing, what I think is an important point that it will help solve is the brand safety and the talent safety. If anything happens to a brand, there's something negative about a brand, you can easily replace it with another brand instead of canceling the whole show. It works the same with the talent. Not that we remove the talent, but you can remove the brand if you don't want to be associated to that type of talent anymore.
So just for people who are listening to this, I mean, I've seen one of your trailers on your website, and essentially, say there's a scene in a restaurant and it's two people speaking, having dinner, you can actually retrospectively put a, as you say, a bottle of Evian, if you like, on the table between them.
And dynamically, we can do it on the spot. So that means, once you've got that insertion and you've got that turnaround time, it creates a huge amount of flexibility.
Yeah. So how
because people could do that in the past, but it was very expensive. You always could do it. We have the VFX, etc., and graphics, and people did it. I used to do it in the past, but it was more because I forgot to put the bottle there while the agreement was made with the sales teams. Back in the day, I was a producer. It's not expensive anymore. It creates flexibility, but also it's dynamically. So some of the shows come out in the morning, need to go on there in the evening. You can't do it. We can.
So there must be barriers for you to get through to, because this makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
So let's say a Netflix, or let's say a Amazon Prime, or one of the SVODs, for example. So there's a show on there that works well for my Evian campaign.
Yeah.
I do a deal with, who are you speaking to, first of all, to do that deal? Would it be the distribution company or the producer, or do you have to speak to the platform?
All of them.
And you have to speak to all of them, and then there obviously must be different challenges because everyone wants a piece of the pie, right, don't they?
They do and they don't. So we do a lot with the networks, because at the end of the day, the networks are the ones that are distributing the material, that are showing and are reaching the audience. So the networks at this moment, when you say there's a challenge, yes, there is. It's an education. But we had the same with the digital rights years ago. And there's an education here, and that's about rights situations. The only thing that we see as a challenge is sometimes the rights situation, who cleared the rights. So with the networks, a lot of time we only work with them on the originals because they've got all the rights for it. But we are more and more clearing rights with the distributors and with the producers as well, because you can imagine for them it's great as well. And this is something that at the end of the day the brands will pay for. So there's no risk for a network or a producer or a distributor to do this. It's actually a complete new monetization round. It's an optimization or on the monetization. But these rights need to be verified and they need to be cleared. So that's why we're working with all three. So we work with producers on a very early stage before they send it to the networks or the platforms they're working with, and a lot of materials going out on things like Tubi or Amazon Prime or anything else, and they want to do an extra monetization to cover their budgets off.
So that's your sweet spot when it comes to point of entry.
That's a producer's point of entry. Then the distributor's point of entry is that they represent the material for a producer, and what we can do with them is that they can sell on top of the license rights for the content. They can sell the virtual placement opportunity for the content, so that's an extra right they can sell. And then the networks normally have the brand relationships, so the networks have got their own brand sales teams, not all of them but most of them, and they can sell it out to the brands. And think about this. Another challenge that we see in the market a lot of the times is that producers weren't always allowed to put product placement, because for the networks it's much more interesting to sell the sponsorship rights. And the sponsorship rights are coming at a very late stage. People want to see the first episodes or they want to see the full series. But now one doesn't exclude the other anymore, because if a network wants to sell the sponsorship rights, they actually can offer a bigger package, because they can offer the sponsorship rights and say, this is a Coca-Cola, this is sponsored by Coca-Cola, but we can put it in the show as well. So instead of monetizing again only on the sponsorship or only on the product placement, they can offer a complete package. And having said that, sorry to rant on, but having said that, there is also that you've got local regulations. And with the local regulations, sometimes on the linear channels, you're not allowed to offer any product placement. Or look at the UK where you're from. You can't do sugar, you can't do alcohol, you can't do a lot of things, but you still can do it on the second stream, or you can do it on social media. So you won't monetize then on these brand placements on your first exposure, but you can on your second or on your third exposure. It is all about the flexibility that this technology offers. And I always say to people, the two things that we can guarantee is scalability. We crash tested the system on 1,000 hours a day. Think about that. 1,000 hours will be scanned at once. So we can scan entire libraries in a matter of weeks. But that's the scalability we can offer you once you've got that. And then the second thing is that once you've got that scalability, you've got the flexibility of placing and replacing materials. And it's up to the creativity of your sales teams what they want to do with it. And we can advise the sales teams, of course, on other things. I've had instances where people say, could we do a gamification with the content? Could you place Easter eggs? And we offer a prize to the person who finds all the Easter eggs within the content on the streaming platform. Yes, of course, we can. Because the basic technology is finding opportunity and placing materials.
Okay. And so what deals have you done? What shows have you worked on? Can you give us a bit of background on how this system is being adopted by the industry?
Yeah, I can't tell everything because some is under NDA, because people don't always want to know that their audiences are using this. But we've done placements on Christmas holiday. We've got some signed deals in Asia as well. We're working on some big proof of concepts. In the beginning of this year, there were a lot of companies that already announced this. We've got a few things that are coming out, but yeah, we worked on Coca-Cola and some placements on March Madness. We worked on A&E Lifetime with Christmas and Diageo.
So your main clients are the media agencies, presumably. I mean, obviously you're in the middle of this ecosystem. So you're speaking to producers, distribution companies, platforms, you speak to everybody, but at the end of the day, it's the media agencies that are coming to you saying,
they're either coming to us or they're coming to the networks. So there are two ways of working. One, we've got a sales department that is working with the media agencies, but at the same time, we are working with the agencies to make this happen. We've got a partnership with Motion and Group M, so they're finding brands for the content as well. Yeah, so, and it's coming from all ways. So, and there's also a lot of different people because we just started our sports department as well. There's always three things that sports departments can monetize on. So first it's licensing of the rights, so the sports federation. The second one is their sponsorship opportunity. And the third one is the ticket sales. First and the third one are actually ones that can't really grow exponentially because, there's only so many people you can do the sports licensing to. And there's only so many people you can do the ticket sales. The stadiums are only that big. But you can do on sponsorship. So what we do, we dynamically add and change billboards as well. Again, with that, it's the sports federations we work with because they own those rights and they own the sponsorship opportunities. And a lot of these sports brands, they actually say, listen, we've got more than enough opportunity, but more enough sponsors that want to sponsor our events, the big sports events. We just don't have enough opportunity. So if you can create that opportunity in the grass or on a building or put an extra layer of billboarding on top of things or actually, again, do the localization where you can offer different streams, different it's for them, it's a huge win opportunity, and it's a new way of monetization.
So you could have the Champions League final being shown and extra billboards dynamically placed within the stadium, and the ability to sell different branding opportunities to different territories that are all watching that. So if you've got 100 countries watching a football game, for example, then there's potential for 100 different brands or more to get involved.
Exactly. And that's the same in the production world as well. Some of the shows are doing really well on product placement, but you only monetize once on it. But if you then travel to multiple countries, take some of the big shows, they travel to multiple countries, but still you only monetize once. And some of these brands aren't even globally available. So we've done a show in TV with TV New Zealand, for instance. They filmed the entire show without product placement and asked us to put it in. Why? Because they had a very local brand that could only be accessed by New Zealand people. When you travel the show, no one has anything to do with that brand because it's only possible to access it in New Zealand. But if you sell the show to the UK or to the Netherlands or to France or to Italy or US, you could easily place another brand in there.
Listen, it's fascinating. We could speak a lot longer about this, I'm sure, and I'm sure we'll speak a lot longer in the future as well about it. But thank you, Ma. Really enjoyed speaking to you.
Welcome.
Good luck at MIPCOM.
Thank you very much.
My next guest in this MIPCOM special is Ilke Hynnenen, Ilke's creative studio from Finland. Ilke, how are you?
Fine, thanks, and thanks for having me, Justin.
It's an absolute pleasure, and it's a very international show, this one, as you might expect, obviously, coming from MIPCOM and having the world of the content industry all gathering together. First of all, tell us a bit about your background, what you did before, because you've just set up a new studio.
So I found a company called Aito Media 2001, and together with my business associate Eero, we ran the company for almost 2 decades. And after that, we just launched a new studio. In Aito, we had partners in content media in London. We had Arkadia studios in France. The latest was Media One. After an exit, I decided that what I want to do is to be a little bit closer to storytelling, because in Aito days, the past 5 years, it was past 10 years, it was a big company with big, running a business is sometimes, it takes quite a bit of time. With the new company ICS, I'm focusing my energy in content creation together with my colleague other Ilkka. So my first name is Ilkka, and there is another Ilkka. That's why the company's name is Ilkka's Creative Studio, ICS. And what we do is we do a handful of international productions every year.
Okay. And is it just scripted or unscripted as well?
Unscripted side, we do only international level documentaries. And for example, we did one Finland and the threat of war, because we are living next to Russia. So that's something what we do. But mostly we are focusing now in scripted.
And the thing that caught my eye about that announcement, which I automatically looked at the idea and I thought, that's brilliant, I want to watch that. Tell us about that. This is a new production that you're working with David Zucker and Pat Proft, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's a hilarious show called Nordic Police Force, No Pofo. And it's a fictional police special unit, and they are solving the most horrible crimes in the Nordics. And as we all know, there are horrible crimes all over the Nordic countries. And we all seen the Brits, we all seen all the Nordic noir genre, and now it's time to spoof that, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, so it's a spoof of Nordic noir.
Yeah, it is.
With the filmmakers behind Naked Gun and Airplane. To me, that idea makes me laugh. Tell us how that all came about.
Well, actually, the story is quite fascinating. There were 3 Finnish writers, and 2 of them have very strong background in stand-up comedy as well. Yeah. So they put the idea together, and approximately a year ago, they approached me and asked that, do I like the idea? And I said that this is a fantastic idea. the biggest question was that why has no one done this before? Because I think this is hilarious idea. And what we did was that we put the pitch deck together, and I contact my colleague and a friend, Randy Siegel in LA, who is a writer and a very talented executive in scripted and especially in comedy. And then Randy helped us out with the script. And a year ago, I came here to Cannes, and I showed the pitch deck for some trusted friends, and they said that this is hilarious, but you really should have some, the big comedy talent attached as well. And then Randy in LA pitched this idea to David Tucker and Pat Proft, and they liked it. And it was so hilarious that we got them on board as an executive producer. So we've been now working with them 10 months a script, and it has been I think the masterclass for me and for writers to comedy storytelling. Even we have done it a lot, hours and hours in the Nordics and in Finland, but this has been so. Maybe the biggest learning experience I have had in my television career so far, because in every sentence, in every feedback, I learn so much, because they are the masters in comedy and masters in spoof. So It's been a big pleasure to work with.
Clearly the script is crucial in this, but the Naked Gun and the Airplane scripts, I mean, just about every line is, is a quip or as a joke, or there's so did they really take the script that you had and just change it up, or have they worked with you to pull that script together right from the beginning?
We had the first script before, and they are helping us out. They are pushing. They are telling us that when there is the fifth version of the script, they say that, look, guys, this is great. I think that we have now 3 very good jokes, and let's put the other jokes in the script at the same level as the 3 we have. So they are very, very they're supportive, and they know what they do. In the Naked Gun and in Airplane, the script is so strong, just like you said, that basically the script is the key. So the actors are, of course, they are very important. The cast is crucial always, but also, in their case, the script is as important as the actors. So what I mean by that is that basically we are doing a script and a series where you can have straight actors acting, and it's still very funny, because the script itself is so funny, and the world and what's happening, and as you know that in their style there are a lot of things happening background and in front, and there are jokes all over. For us, it's been amazing, just amazing.
I can imagine. I mean, the number of clips from the original movies that are kind of viral in their own right now. Some really famous scenes from Airplane in particular. I mean, I guess it's too early, but are you thinking about how you can utilize social media to build the buzz around this, or is it's probably a bit too early, right? When do you go into production?
Yes, so basically what we have now put the team together, the pitch together, and we are working with BBC Studios Nordic, so they are our co-production partner with that. So
that's Jan Salin, right? A friend of TellyCast, exactly.
Friend of TellyCast and a friend of mine, a good friend. So what we are doing is that we are putting to production now together, and now we are just going out there in this here in Cannes, and we are starting to pitch it. So we don't know yet what's the schedule is, but our target is that this will be in production we are writing next year, and it will be in production in 24. Okay. So yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question now, and you can just say no, right? But have you got the cast? Have you got the cast together? Can you tell me anything?
I can't tell you, but of course we have had some talks, but there is nothing certain yet. So we can tell. And regarding the social media, I think that's a brilliant idea. We really need to do that.
Okay. Well, I'll send you my invoice later for that consultancy.
Yes,
and how are you finding the market, Ilke? How's it going? How are your meetings going so far? Are you pretty hectic like everybody else is?
Yeah, it is. It's been pretty hectic, and a year ago we all were. You remember that we had masks and all that. So it's but now it's we are not masked producers anymore, and it's so fun that we can be here, and this feels that we are just like back in the old days. So I feel that it's good, and I think that people are now in very creative mode. That we have very good new contacts, and also the friends we know from the past. It's so good to see them, and you know. And hug them, and shake their hands. So it's something what we could have done in a couple of years. So it's so good. Yeah,
lots of hugging. Well, it feels like summer again here, and with the fantastic weather been having. In a couple of days, we'll all be back to. You'll be back in Tampere in Finland, and we'll be back in London and shivering away. Ilke, thank you for joining me. Good luck. I mean, this is like almost to me, it's a surefire winner, this project. So good luck with it. I'll be looking forward to seeing, who comes on board in the coming weeks and months. So good luck with everything.
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'll keep you posted. Thanks.
So my next guest on this week's show is Fotini Paraskakis from Empire of Arkadia. Fotini, how are you?
I'm good. Hello. Yeah.
Great to have you on the show and bump into you here at MIPCOM. So Empire of Arkadia, it's a new business, right? I saw that announced in Variety a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us a little bit about this new business, because you were at Storylab for a number of years, weren't you?
Yes. Well, it's been a long time in the making. I've been in the Asia region for 25, 30 years now, always working for international companies. I was at Fremantle for 12 years and Endemol for 7, and then Storylab actually for 3. But I was always in the market, looking at stories, working with creators and turning around formats for my companies, but with an international lens. And I found over the years that there are so many great creators and stories that weren't being told internationally. These creators weren't actually visible or in the eye of commissioners or international companies. So I've wanted to do something and work creators and help build the Asian industry for some time. It's a question of timing. So when The Masked Singer launched and did incredibly well, and then we had Squid Game and Parasite, obviously there was a hive of activity around Korean content, and it's really hot, and and then Japanese. I thought it was perfect timing to launch Empire of Arkadia, EOA, because it was just exactly what I knew, what I've been doing for years, which is identifying amazing ideas from the region, helping scale and develop them, and help creators be put in front of international commissioners and make those ideas truly global, which is my dream come true.
Yeah, well, this was the Korean wave, so-called, wasn't it? Because it wasn't only televisual content, but it was also music, and still is, right?
Yes.
And perhaps we haven't spoken about it for a little while, just because of, obviously we've come through the pandemic and various other things in the last year or so. So tell me about the slate that you've been to MIPCOM.
So what is interesting, what I think is really appealing, so when you look at Masked Singer, it's effectively a talent show, but looking at it through a different lens, which I feel, and it come game show, which I feel the lens, in Korea, for example, is quite different to how we in the UK or possibly in America and the West will put shows together. So what we're doing is working with Korean and Japanese IP primarily, or creators, and understanding what international platforms want. So, for example, at the moment, it's social experiments, some dating, reality, also big talent shows, but again, putting a different spin on it. So I feel, having worked on both sides of the, it's not a pond, but I've been in the East a lot, but being from the UK, I understand what audiences want to see, but I think there's something lacking, and now the market is really stagnating in the West. They're looking for that different spark, but they just can't come up with it. So in Korea, the way they create and collaborate is totally different, which allows them to put that edge above and the rest of what is happening in Europe, UK and US. So what we're doing is developing a slate in non-scripted and also scripted. So on non-scripted, the focus at the moment is, what the industry internationally wants, which is currently social experiment, some dating, reality music, and game show. And what I do is work with platforms, creators and partners that are good in those genres in Korea and Japan, and then I match them with, or not necessarily match them, but we co-develop and produce with creators and platforms internationally who are looking for that content. So,
are you a production company or a distribution company or both?
We're both. So our role is kind of executive producing. So we source the idea or come up with the ideas. We find the right partners or work with the partners in Korea and Japan that or have those ideas, but they just don't have the scale and the reach to take it to market. So we then do that. Having our knowledge and international expertise, we, find them the route to entry internationally and find them with a good partner who's passionate and interested in working with ideas from Korea and Japan, because it's not everyone's cup of tea. So the first thing, I think there has to be passion and the will on both sides alongside the idea, and then we start to see it move. So that's really working now. So we have something in development around social experimentation, something in game show, and we're going to be working in something in the music space. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned earlier on the way that Koreans in particular create formats and create shows is very different. Can you delve into that a little bit? And so, how is it different?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that it's Korea and Japan. Although Korea is the hot market right now, there's a lot of the creativity comes from Japan. So I would say those two markets are the ones to really watch for. What I mean by that is for example, the way of development in Western markets is quite different from Korea and Japan. We would develop a one-line idea in a workshop process, whereas in Korea and Japan, it's an individual process. They all individually develop their own ideas, and then they all bring an idea to the table and then throw a few out and keep a few in. And then, those people go back and individually develop that idea. And when they get to 2 ideas, they then work on it. So it's more kind of, I think it's a harder process because it's kind of lots of ideas and shrink down, where our approach is one idea, make it bigger. So it's a different way of development, which I think sometimes is a bit hard for internationals to understand. And the other thing, it's cultural. So, with Korea and Japan, they always think strategically. That's why there's a lot of different layers in their shows, which is sometimes quite complicated, whereas we tend to think kind of big picture and not necessarily a lot of detail. So it's really, really interesting. But from those 2 different approaches, we can shrink it down and come up with something really innovative, which international markets need, quite frankly, right now.
Yeah. Is it about paper formats as well? Is that, or is it finished programming you're also selling? Or
it's a range of things. So the projects start with a different perspective. It could be paper. It could be an original idea that 2 partners work on. It could be a segment, or it could be redeveloping a format. I pick things based on how I feel what's happening in international market, or how easy it is to redevelop and things like that. So it's various different stages, but then it allows us to be a lot more flexible, entrepreneurial, forward thinking, and that also goes to the commercial modelling. So we try and find partners that are more forward thinking in terms of flexibility in commercial arrangements, because this is also what Korean and Japanese and Asian partners are looking for. And the days of getting Asians to pay for everything and airing it are over. So, we just need to work on more on a sharing basis, which is how the industry is moving forward.
Tell us about the other colleagues that you have at your new business then, and where they've come from.
Yeah, so I am the founder, but we have Shigeko Chino Cindy, who I'm very happy to have on board. She's our partner in Japan and is running our Japanese business. She's based in Tokyo. She was at Nippon TV for 35 years and leading the international business. And she really believed in what we were doing, so she did decide to join, and I'm very, very happy to have her on board. And then my other partner is Arthur Bastings. He was senior management level at Discovery, at EMEA and APAC, who's president. So he brings the kudos around strategic thinking and planning and financial investment. And that's partly why the name's called Empire of Arkadia, because we're looking to go quite big with this and have the right senior people in place who individually bring their expertise to the table. And we're finalising someone in Korea, and next year we'll be looking at someone in LA. So these are our key places: Tokyo, Seoul, London, and LA. That's where the core
And are you based in London?
I'm based in London and Singapore, yeah.
Right, okay.
Where we set up the company.
This is the first MIPCOM, obviously, that's back to its previous levels of delegates for 3 years. Are we seeing a strong delegation coming from Korea and Japan this year?
Interestingly enough, there are a lot of Koreans and Japanese in the market. I think for the very reason that a lot of international producers, platforms and partners are in their stands and booths every day. There's a lot of interest around this content, which is really exciting because it's never been like that before. It's all very well having a meeting, but then where does that meeting go? And that's where we come in, because we can really help take the ideas to the next level and bring shows that the international audience want to see.
All right, Fotini, thank you for spending some time with me today. Best of luck at the market and best of luck with your new business.
Thanks so much. Pleasure.
Well, that's it from MIPCOM and indeed Cannes for another 6 months. I hope you've enjoyed our TellyCast specials from the market. Just a reminder that the TellyCast Digital Content Forum, sponsored by BBC Studios, is taking place at the BFI South Bank in London on November the 10th. And you can still get tickets at tellycast.com/events. But be quick, early bird pricing finishes 31st of October. TellyCast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in Cannes. Until next week, stay safe.